Tract Sabbath. Chapter 1. Regulations regarding transfer on Sabbath. Mishnah I. There are two acts constituting transfer: one of movable things, over the dividing line of adjoining premises, based on biblical statutes. The two acts are, however, increased to 4 on the inside and to a like amount on the outside of the premises, by the addition of rabbinical statutes. How so? A mendicant stands outside and the master of a house inside. The mendicant passes his hand into the house, through a window or door, and puts something into the hand of the master, or he takes something out of the master's hand and draws it back, toward him. In such a case the mendicant is guilty of transfer, and the master of the house is free. If the master of the house passes his hand outside and puts a thing into the hand of the mendicant, or takes something out of the mendicant's hand and brings it into the house, the master of the house is culpable and the mendicant is free. 2. If the mendicant extends his hand into the house and the master takes something out of it, or puts something into it which is drawn to the outside by the mendicant, they are both free. If the master of the house extends his hand outside and the mendicant takes something out of it, or puts something into it which is drawn to the inside by the master, they are both free. Gemara, we were taught, Shavuot, 4:2, the acts p. 2. of transfer on the Sabbath are 2, respectively 4. Why is this teaching here specified as 2 respectively 4 on the inside, and 2 respectively 4 on the outside, and there no such specification was made? Said our Papa, here the special subject of treatment is the Sabbath, and the Mishnah enumerated the cases which involve guilt and those which do not involve guilt, while there the principal subject of treatment is a different one, and he mentions only the cases that involve guilt, leaving the cases that do not involve guilt untouched. But the cases that involve guilt are those by which acts of transfer are committed, and such are only 2? Nay, there are 2 acts of transfer from within and 2 from without. But the Mishnah says, Yatzaf, which in a literal sense means transfer from within. Said Rashi, the Tana calls transfer from without by the same term. And for what reason? Because every act of removing a thing from its place is called Yetzia. Said Rabbeinu, the Mishnah also bears out this sense, for it speaks of Yetzeth and immediately illustrates its remark by citing a case from without. This bears it out. Rabba, however, says, he, the Tana, speaks about divided premises, whose line of division is crossed, and in this case there are only 2, in each of which there may be 4 acts of transfer. Said Mathna to Abayi, are there not 8, even 12, instances of transfer over the line of division? 1. And he rejoined, such transfers as involve the obligation of a sin offering are counted, but those that do not involve such an obligation are not counted. They are both free. Was not the act of transfer committed by both? Said Arhiya bar Gamda, the act of removing the thing was committed by the joint efforts of both, and they, the rabbis, said, it is written in the law, when a person did it too, that is, when one person commits the act he is culpable, but when an act is committed by the joint efforts of 2 persons, they are both free. Rab questioned Rabbi, if one were laden by his friend with eatables and beverages and carried them outside of the house, how is the law? Is the removing of his body tantamount to the removing of a thing from its place, and therefore he is culpable, or is it not so? p. 3. Said Rabbi to him, he is culpable. And this case is not like the case of removing his hand. Why so? Because, in the latter case, the hand was not at rest, while, in the former, the body, before and after removal, was entirely at rest. 1. Said Rabbi Hiya to Rab, descendant of nobles, did I not tell thee that when Rabbi is engaged with a certain tract, ask him not about a subject that is treated in another tract, for he may not have that subject in his mind. And if Rabbi were not a great man thou mightest cause him shame, for he would give thee an answer which might not be right. In this instance, however, he gave thee a correct answer, as we have learned in the following Boratha. If one was laden with eatables and beverages while it was yet light on the eve of Sabbath, and he carried them outside after dark, he is culpable, for his case is not like that of removing the hand mentioned above. Abai said, from all that was said above it is certain to me that the hand of a man, standing on the street, is not treated as public ground. 2. And I also see that, if a man stands on private ground, his hand is not to be treated as private ground. Would it be correct, then, to regard the hand as unclaimed ground? If so, would the penalty imposed by the rabbis in such a case, namely, that one should not move his hand, containing a movable thing, back, during the Sabbath day, apply in this case or not? Come and hear the following Boratha. If a man has his hand filled with fruit and he extends it outside of the premises where he stands, one said he is not permitted to draw it back, and another Boratha says he is allowed to do so. May we not assume that this is their point of dispute? The former holds that the hand is treated as unclaimed ground, and the latter thinks that it is not like unclaimed ground? Nay, it may be that both agree that the hand, as spoken of in our Mishnah, is like unclaimed ground, and yet it presents no difficulty. One of the Borathas treats of a man who had extended his hand unintentionally, and the other one treats of a man who had put forth his hand intentionally. In the former case the rabbis did not p. 4. Fine him, and in the latter case they did. And if you wish, it may be said that they both speak of a case when the act was done unintentionally, and their point of differing is as to the varying premises, whether the hand may be drawn back to the ground where the man stands, or to other, private, ground that adjoins it. As Rabba questioned R. Naaman, if the hand of a man was filled with fruit, and he extended it outside, may he draw it back to the same ground where he stands? And he answered, he may. And may he remove his hand, to other, private, ground? Nay. And to the question, what is the distinction? He said, if thou wilt measure a whole cur of salt and present me with it, I shall tell thee the answer. See footnote, Erubin, p. 79. In the former case his design was not accomplished, in the latter, however, his design was accomplished, and it is prohibited for fear that it should be repeated. Rabbi Bar Abai questioned, if one has put bread into the oven, is he allowed to take it out before it is baked and he becomes liable to bring a sin offering, or not? Said R. Bar Abai to Rabina, what does the questioner mean? Unintentionally and without remembering that it is Sabbath, then what does the expression allowed mean? To whom? He is still not aware of it. On the other hand, if he did it unintentionally and afterward he remembered of the Sabbath, how can he be liable to a sin offering? Did not a Mishnah state that the liability to bring such a sacrifice applies only when the failing was begun and accomplished unintentionally? Should it be understood that the act was done intentionally, then it would not involve the liability of a sin offering, but it would constitute a crime that involved capital punishment. 1. Said Rashi, say, then, it is a crime that involves capital punishment. Aha, the son of Rabha, taught so plainly. Rabbi Bar Abai said, if one put bread into the oven, he is allowed to take it out before it may involve a case of capital punishment. The mendicant extended his hand, etc. Why is he culpable? To complete the act, there must be a transfer from a place that is 4 ells square and a depositing into a place of the same area, and such was not the case here. Said Rabbi, our p. 5. Paragraph continues, Mishnah is in accordance with Arkiba's opinion, who holds that as soon as the air of a place surrounds a thing it is equal to the thing being deposited in that place. But may it not be that depositing does not require 4 ells, for the reason stated above, but removing does? Said R. Joseph, the teaching of this paragraph agrees, not with the opinion of Arkiba, but with that of Rabbi, as we have learned in the following Boratha. If one threw an object from one street into the other, and there was a private ground between them, Rabbi declared him culpable, and the sages freed him. Hereupon R. Jehuda in the name of Samuel said, Rabbi declared the man guilty of 2 offenses, one for having removed the thing from its place, and one for having deposited it in another place. Hence in both, the 4 ells in question are not required. But with reference to this it was taught that both the Rab and Samuel said that Rabbi's declaration of culpability treated of a case where the private ground, that divided the two streets, was roofed, for the assumption is that a house must be regarded as a solid object that fills out all the space it occupies.